It was late evening, the kind of night when the road hums softly beneath a lone motorcycle. The rider, wearing a plain black jacket and an old helmet with a few scratches, pulled up outside a small roadside bar. He parked carefully, removed his helmet, and brushed his hair back. It was Keanu Reeves, but to anyone passing by, he looked like an ordinary traveler who'd been riding too long, chasing the horizon in silence. Inside the bar, the air was thick with laughter, smoke, and rock music from an old jukebox. A group of 5 heavy-set bikers dominated the counter, loud, careless, drunk on both beer and ego. They owned the place, or at least they acted like it. When Keanu entered, their laughter briefly died. He walked to a quiet corner, nodded politely at the bartender, and ordered something simple. "Just a black coffee, please," he said with that calm voice. Steady, polite, and almost too gentle for the place he was in. The bartender gave him a curious look. Coffee? In a biker bar at 10 p.m. Still, he poured it. Keanu sat quietly, taking slow sips, lost in thought. A man who didn't belong but didn't disturb. That quiet confidence somehow irritated the loudest man at the counter, a broad, tattooed biker with a smirk that screamed trouble. He nudged his friend and whispered something. They laughed. Then they started watching Keanu like a pack of wolves eyeing easy prey. "Hey, buddy," the tattooed one finally shouted. "You lost or something? This ain't no coffee shop." The other bikers chuckled. Keanu looked up, smiled faintly, and said softly, "Just passing through." His tone wasn't defensive, just calm, almost disarming. But that calmness, it only made them angrier. "Passing through?" another biker echoed mockingly. "You look like some Hollywood wannabe, huh? Maybe you're one of those rich boys pretending to be tough." The laughter grew louder. Keanu didn't react. He took another sip of coffee and said, "You shouldn't judge people so quickly." Simple words, measured, respectful. But in that bar, surrounded by men who thrived on dominance, those words landed like a challenge. The bartender began to fidget nervously, eyes darting between Keanu and the bikers. Something about the stranger's stillness and the way he didn't flinch or back away made the atmosphere heavier. Even the jukebox seemed quieter. The lead biker stood up, cracking his knuckles, swaggering toward Keanu's table. He leaned in and said with a smirk, "You got some kind of attitude, old man." Keanu looked up, his gaze calm and steady. "No," he said, "just peace." The biker laughed harshly. "Peace, huh? Wrong place for that." The other bikers turned their chairs, watching, ready to enjoy what they thought would be an easy show. But what happened next shocked everyone in that bar. The bar's laughter grew darker, meaner. The lead biker, a heavy man with a chain around his neck and eyes that never smiled, leaned closer to Keanu. "So you're a peaceful guy, huh? You think that makes you better than us?" He sneered. Keanu calmly set his cup down and looked up at him. Not angry, not afraid, just quiet. "No," he said softly. "Just different." That simple answer made the biker's grin fade. He wasn't used to calmness. He was used to fear. He wanted to see someone flinch, beg, or fight back. But Keanu did none of that. Another biker joined in, grabbing Keanu's helmet from the table and turning it in his hands. "Nice ride outside," he mocked. "Bet it's worth more than your face." Keanu reached out and gently took the helmet back, placing it beside him again. "Please," he said, "put it down. It's not worth it." The room went silent for a heartbeat, then exploded with cruel laughter. To them, his politeness was weakness. The bartender shifted uneasily, wiping the same spot on the counter, over and over, hoping things wouldn't go where they were clearly heading. The lead biker leaned over Keanu again, close enough that the smell of alcohol was heavy in the air. "Tell me something, pretty boy. What are you even doing here? This ain't your kind of place." Keanu looked at his reflection in the man's sunglasses and replied, "Just stopping for coffee. Long ride. Long day." The biker's smirk widened. "You hear that, boys? Mr. Coffee Man here thinks this is Starbucks." The group burst out laughing again, pounding the tables. One of them, emboldened by the noise, knocked Keanu's coffee mug over. It spilled across the counter, dark liquid spreading like a stain of disrespect. The laughter stopped abruptly. Everyone waited for a reaction. Keanu just sighed quietly, picked up a napkin, and began cleaning it up himself. That moment, his restraint, his silence, somehow made it worse. The bikers didn't know why they suddenly felt smaller, like they were the ones being judged, and that stung their pride. "Hey!" the leader barked, grabbing Keanu's shoulder roughly. "When someone spills your drink, you're supposed to do something about it." Keanu looked at the man's hand gripping his jacket. "Maybe," he said quietly. "You're supposed to do something about yourself." The tension cracked like a whip. The biker's grin vanished. Around them, a few customers started reaching for their phones, sensing something was about to happen. The bartender whispered under his breath, "Don't do this, please don't." But the bikers were already too deep in it, too proud to back down, too blind to see who they were dealing with. The leader shoved Keanu back slightly, testing him. Still, Keanu didn't react. His eyes just lowered for a moment as if he were weighing peace against necessity. And somewhere in that bar, someone whispered, "Why do I feel like this guy's not just some random rider?" The music stopped. The laughter faded, and the tension in that small bar became so thick you could hear the sound of a storm waiting to break. The air in the bar had grown razor sharp. Every eye was locked on the quiet stranger, the man who refused to fight back. Keanu stood slowly, setting his helmet gently on the table beside his half-spilled coffee. The leader of the bikers, red-faced and breathing hard, smirked at him like a predator testing prey. "What's the matter, old man? You gonna cry over a cup of coffee?" Keanu's eyes lifted, steady, calm, unreadable. "I told you," he said softly. "I don't want trouble." That voice. Too calm, too measured. It wasn't fear. It was control. And for some reason that scared the crowd more than any raised fist could have. The biker laughed harshly, trying to shake off the chill in his spine. "Oh, you don't want trouble? Guess what? Trouble's here." With a shove, he pushed Keanu's shoulder hard. The chair behind Keanu toppled backward and clattered to the floor. Gasps rippled across the room. Keanu didn't stumble. He just took a single step back and stood tall. He fixed his jacket, looked the man dead in the eye, and said quietly, "Are you sure you want to do this?" The leader froze for a fraction of a second. Something in Keanu's tone hit differently. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. But pride is a dangerous thing. The biker's ego screamed louder than his instincts. He puffed his chest and barked, "You think you can scare me with that Hollywood talk?" Behind him, one of his friends muttered nervously, "Maybe we should chill, man." But the leader ignored him. He shoved Keanu again, this time harder. Keanu's hand moved, not fast, not flashy, just precise. He caught the man's wrist mid-air. The biker's face twisted in pain as Keanu's grip tightened with silent, controlled strength. A hush fell over the entire bar. "Let go," the man hissed. Keanu's voice was calm as ever. "Walk away." The biker yanked his arm free, stepping back and rubbing his wrist, disbelief flashing across his face. "What are you, some kind of martial artist?" Keanu didn't answer. He just stared at him, eyes cold, expression unreadable. The silence was louder than any threat could be. From the corner, the bartender whispered to himself, "Oh my God. I've seen that look before. That's him," but the others hadn't realized yet. To them, he was just a quiet man who somehow didn't flinch under pressure. The leader, now humiliated, growled and grabbed a bottle off the counter. He lifted it like a weapon. A few customers stood up, backing away from the fight. Phones were already recording. "Put it down," Keanu said firmly. For the first time, there was steel in his voice. It wasn't anger, it was command. The kind of voice that makes even the wildest men hesitate. The biker hesitated, just long enough for fear to flicker in his eyes, then swung the bottle. But before it could even connect, Keanu sidestepped, grabbed the man's arm, twisted, and swept his leg. In a heartbeat, the biker was on the ground, bottle shattering beside him. The entire move was clean, efficient, military precise. Silence consumed the room. No music, no laughter. Just the sound of the biker groaning on the floor. Keanu stepped back, his breathing calm, his stance relaxed. He looked around the room, meeting every eye one by one. "I said I didn't want trouble," he murmured. "And now? It's your choice whether it ends here." No one moved. No one spoke. The aura had changed. The quiet stranger was no longer the target. He was the storm. The biker on the floor groaned, clutching his wrist. His arrogance shattered faster than the bottle beside him. For a moment, the bar stood frozen, like the world had stopped breathing. Keanu didn't move to attack, didn't even raise his voice. He simply stood there, posture calm, eyes watchful. It was the silence of someone who could destroy, but chose peace instead. And that silence was far more terrifying than violence. One of the bikers stepped forward, half-heartedly raising his hands. "Hey man, we didn't mean nothing serious," he stammered. Keanu looked at him, then glanced at the leader still on the ground. "You all had a choice," he said quietly. "You just made the wrong one." Something in that tone, soft but unbreakable, made the younger biker swallow hard. His voice trembled. "Who are you, man?" Keanu said nothing. He just picked up his helmet from the table and placed it under his arm, preparing to leave. Then from the back corner of the bar, a teenage boy who'd been sitting with his father suddenly gasped. His phone screen glowed faintly, paused on a clip from an action movie. He looked from the screen to the man standing there. His mouth fell open. "That's him," he whispered. "Dad, that's Keanu Reeves." The words sliced through the tension like a blade. Whispers erupted immediately. "Wait, what? No way, are you serious?" "Dude, that's John Wick." The bartender froze mid-motion, staring at the stranger he'd just served coffee to. As the realization spread, so did the silence, thicker, heavier than before. The bikers looked around, unsure whether to believe it. The leader, still on the floor, blinked in confusion. "John, what?" he mumbled. The teenager stood up, holding out his phone, the movie poster bright on the screen. "Look," he said, excitement trembling in his voice. "That's him." It's really him. And suddenly every face in that bar turned toward Keanu. He didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't bask in recognition. He just sighed softly and said, "Please, no attention. It's not important." But the humility in his voice only deepened their awe. He wasn't angry. He wasn't proud. He was human, calm, kind, and impossibly composed in the face of humiliation. The bartender, still wide-eyed, stammered, "Sir, I didn't realize if I'd known—" Keanu interrupted gently. "You treated me fine. That's all that matters." Then looking at the bikers, he added, "It's never about who someone is. It's about how you treat them." The leader finally managed to stand, his hands shaking. His pride was gone now, replaced by a crushing sense of shame. He couldn't meet Keanu's eyes. I didn't know," he muttered. Keanu looked at him, his expression unreadable. "That's the point," he said softly. "You never know who you're hurting." For a long moment, no one spoke. The jukebox, still faintly humming, played an old blues song in the background. Slow, mournful, echoing through the stillness. The crowd's earlier mockery had turned to respect, even reverence. Phones were recording again, but now for a different reason. They weren't filming a fight. They were capturing a moment. The night the quiet stranger revealed himself without needing to prove anything. Keanu turned toward the door, the light from outside spilling across his face. He paused, glancing back at the stunned room. "Violence doesn't make you strong," he said quietly. "Restraint does." Then he walked out, calm, steady, the sound of his boots echoing softly against the wooden floor. The door swung shut behind him, and the bar exhaled as if released from a spell. Inside, the teenage boy whispered to no one in particular, "He was John Wick. But in real life, he's even better." For a long moment after Keanu stepped toward the door, no one in the bar moved. Even the clinking of glasses had stopped. It was as if everyone was waiting to wake from a dream. But the silence didn't last long. Guilt has a way of crawling up fast when truth hits hard. The lead biker, still rubbing his wrist, glanced at his friends. Their faces were pale, their bravado gone. He muttered, "We just messed with John Wick." No one laughed this time. The words hung in the air like smoke, ugly, undeniable. Keanu reached for the handle, ready to leave the mess and the noise behind. But then a low, shaking voice came from behind him. "Wait," the leader called out, his tone no longer mocking. Keanu turned slightly, his expression neutral. The man hesitated, then said quietly, "I didn't know who you were, man." "If I'd known, I'd—" Keanu cut him off gently. "That's the problem," he said. "You shouldn't have to know someone to show them respect." The biker froze, words caught in his throat. Keanu's calmness wasn't arrogance, it was truth. It exposed every shallow excuse, every ounce of pride that had fed the cruelty moments before. The younger biker, the one who'd mocked Keanu's coffee, looked down, ashamed. He whispered, "We were just messing around, man." We didn't mean to go that far. Keanu looked at him kindly. You never think it's too far? Until it is. The bartender, who'd been silent the whole time, finally spoke. Sir, he said softly, you handled that better than anyone I've ever seen. Most people would have fought. Keanu smiled faintly. Fighting's easy. Walking away takes more. Outside, a faint rumble of motorcycles echoed down the road. Another group arriving, drawn by the commotion they'd heard. The bar's neon sign flickered as 4 new riders stepped in, scanning the scene. They froze when they saw their fellow bikers standing stiff and silent. And Keanu Reeves at the center of it all. What the hell happened here? One of them asked, his voice uncertain. No one answered. The leader straightened up, trying to reclaim a sliver of his pride. He gestured vaguely toward Keanu and muttered, We were just having a misunderstanding. One of the newcomers frowned. With him? Then he looked closer, realization dawning. Wait a sec. The leader cut him off, shaking his head. Yeah, I know. The new group exchanged glances, suddenly quieter. Keanu, sensing the tension might rise again, spoke gently but firmly. No more trouble. I'm leaving. You all have your night. Just make it a better one than this. He reached into his pocket, pulled out some bills, and placed them on the counter. For the coffee, he said to the bartender. And the broken glass. Then, turning to the leader, he added, You've got strength. But strength isn't about who you can hurt. It's about who you can protect. Those words hit harder than any punch could. The leader's jaw tightened, his eyes glistening slightly. He gave a slow nod. You're right, he murmured. We were idiots. Keanu studied him for a moment, then nodded back, not in judgment, but forgiveness. He picked up his helmet, tucked it under his arm, and walked out through the door. The faint sound of wind swept in as it closed behind him. For a long time, nobody spoke. Then the teenager, still standing near his table, whispered, He could have destroyed them all. But he didn't, the bartender sighed. That's real power, kid. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself. Outside, Keanu swung his leg over his bike, started the engine, and let the sound of the motor drown out the weight of the moment. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Inside, the bikers just stood there, unhumbled, silent, and maybe for the first time in a long while, changed. Outside, the night air was cool, brushing gently against Keanu's face as he fastened his helmet. The parking lot was quiet except for the soft hum of his motorcycle. Inside the bar, the noise had died completely, replaced by the heavy silence of shame. But just as Keanu was about to start the engine, a voice called out from behind him. Sir, wait! He turned slightly. It was one of the younger bikers. Not the leader, but the one who'd first laughed at him for ordering coffee. He jogged toward Keanu, his expression uncertain, his pride shattered. Hey, he said, catching his breath, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, for everything. We were out of line. Keanu studied the young man's face for a moment, the sincerity, the regret. He removed his helmet, revealing a calm smile. You don't need to say sorry to me, he said gently. Just be better next time. That's what matters. The young biker nodded, eyes glistening. We thought you were just some random guy. We had no idea who you were. Keanu tilted his head slightly. Then maybe that's the lesson, isn't it? You shouldn't need to know who someone is. To treat them with respect. The words landed like thunder. The young man looked down ashamed. He managed to whisper, I'll remember that. Keanu smiled faintly, put his helmet back on, and prepared to leave. But before he could rev the engine, headlights flashed across the lot. Another motorcycle pulling up, followed by a police cruiser. Out stepped Officer Daniels, a middle-aged cop with a calm but firm demeanor. He'd received a call from a witness reporting a bar fight involving bikers. Daniels looked at the scene, broken glass, spilled drinks, and the crowd peeking through the doorway. Then at the man standing beside a sleek black motorcycle. His eyes widened instantly. Wait, Mr. Reeves? He said, blinking in disbelief. Keanu Reeves? Keanu gave a polite nod. Evening, officer. Daniels chuckled softly, shaking his head. I can't believe this. You're actually here. I've been a fan since I was a kid. Keanu smiled. I was just having coffee. Things got complicated. The officer turned toward the group of bikers now standing at the door, stiff and uneasy. His tone hardened. Complicated? Looks like you boys picked the wrong guy to mess with. The leader stepped forward slowly, voice trembling. We didn't know who he was, officer. I swear we didn't mean... Daniels raised a hand. You don't have to know a man's name to know how to act like a decent human being. Then he turned back to Keanu, shaking his head with a grin. You handled this better than most people would have. Keanu shrugged modestly. Violence only adds more pain. Sometimes silence is louder. The officer nodded. That's rare wisdom these days. Then, looking toward the bikers again, he said, You owe this man respect. And maybe a thank you for not pressing charges. The leader hesitated, then walked forward, eyes downcast. He extended a shaky hand. I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves, I was a fool. Keanu looked at the hand for a moment, then took it. His grip was firm but kind. We all make mistakes. What matters is whether we learn from them. The crowd inside the bar erupted into quiet murmurs, phones capturing every moment. To them, this wasn't just an apology. It was transformation. A man who could have destroyed his attackers chose forgiveness instead. That was the moment the story became legend. The officer gave a small smile. You're free to go, Mr. Reeves. I think they've learned enough for one night. Keanu nodded, stepping back toward his bike. Take care, officer. And take care of them, too. They just need guidance. Daniels nodded respectfully. You have my word. Keanu swung his leg over the bike, engine rumbling to life. The sound rolled through the night like thunder fading into peace. Before putting on his helmet, he looked back one last time. The bar lights reflected in his eyes, calm, knowing, and endlessly human. Remember, he said softly, respect costs nothing, but it changes everything. With that, he pulled the visor down, twisted the throttle, and rode off into the darkness, the roar of the engine fading into the distant hum of the highway. The bikers stood silently in the parking lot, watching the taillight disappear into the night. No one spoke. The leader exhaled slowly and said almost to himself, He could have ruined us, but instead he taught us something we'll never forget. Outside, the night air was cool, brushing gently against Keanu's face as he fastened his helmet. The parking lot was quiet, except for the soft hum of his motorcycle. Inside the bar, the noise had died completely, replaced by the heavy silence of shame. But just as Keanu was about to start the engine, a voice called out from behind him. Sir, wait, he turned slightly. It was one of the younger bikers, not the leader, but the one who'd first laughed at him for ordering coffee. He jogged toward Keanu, his expression uncertain, his pride shattered. Hey, he said, catching his breath, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. We were out of line. Keanu studied the young man's face for a moment, the sincerity, the regret. He removed his helmet, revealing a calm smile. You don't need to say sorry to me, he said gently. Just be better next time. That's what matters. The young biker nodded, eyes glistening. We thought you were just some random guy. We had no idea who you were. Keanu tilted his head slightly. Then maybe that's the lesson, isn't it? You shouldn't need to know who someone is. To treat them with respect, the words landed like thunder. The young man looked down, ashamed. He managed to whisper, I'll remember that. Keanu smiled faintly, put his helmet back on, and prepared to leave. But before he could rev the engine, headlights flashed across the lot. Another motorcycle pulling up, followed by a police cruiser. Out stepped Officer Daniels, a middle-aged cop with a calm but firm demeanor. He'd received a call from a witness reporting a bar fight involving bikers. Daniels looked at the scene. Broken glass, spilled drinks, and the crowd peeking through the doorway, then at the man standing beside a sleek black motorcycle. His eyes widened instantly. Wait, Mr. Reeves? He said, blinking in disbelief. Keanu Reeves? Keanu gave a polite nod. Evening, officer. Daniels chuckled softly, shaking his head. I can't believe this. You're actually here. I've been a fan since I was a kid. Keanu smiled. I was just having coffee. Things got complicated. The officer turned toward the group of bikers now standing at the door, stiff and uneasy. His tone hardened. Complicated? Looks like you boys picked the wrong guy to mess with. The leader stepped forward slowly, voice trembling. We didn't know who he was, officer. I swear we didn't mean... Daniels raised a hand. You don't have to know a man's name to know how to act like a decent human being. Then he turned back to Keanu, shaking his head with a grin. You handled this better than most people would have. Keanu shrugged modestly. Violence only adds more pain. Sometimes silence is louder. The officer nodded. That's rare wisdom these days. Then looking toward the bikers again, he said, You owe this man respect. And maybe a thank you for not pressing charges. The leader hesitated, then walked forward, eyes downcast. He extended a shaky hand. I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves, I was a fool. Keanu looked at the hand for a moment, then took it. His grip was firm but kind. We all make mistakes. What matters is whether we learn from them. The crowd inside the bar erupted into quiet murmurs, phones capturing every moment. To them, this wasn't just an apology. It was transformation. A man who could have destroyed his attackers chose forgiveness instead. That was the moment the story became legend. The officer gave a small smile. You're free to go, Mr. Reeves. I think they've learned enough for one night. Keanu nodded, stepping back toward his bike. Take care, officer. And take care of them, too. They just need guidance. Daniels nodded respectfully. You have my word. Keanu swung his leg over the bike, engine rumbling to life. The sound rolled through the night like thunder fading into peace. Before putting on his helmet, he looked back one last time. The bar lights reflected in his eyes. Calm, knowing, and endlessly human. Remember, he said softly. Respect costs nothing, but it changes everything. With that, he pulled the visor down, twisted the throttle, and rode off into the darkness, the roar of the engine fading into the distant hum of the highway. The bikers stood silently in the parking lot, watching the taillight disappear into the night. No one spoke. The leader exhaled slowly and said, almost to himself, he could have ruined us, but instead he taught us something we'll never forget by the next morning. The incident had already become a storm across the internet. Someone from the bar had recorded it all, the insults, the silence, the apology. The moment Keanu rode away into the night. Within hours, the clip had flooded every social platform. The caption read, When humility wears a leather jacket, the night Keanu Reeves chose kindness over ego. Millions clicked. Millions watched. And millions felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Respect. Comments poured in from around the world. He didn't even raise his voice. He's not just John Wick on screen, he's a real-life example of discipline. This is what true power looks like. Calm, quiet, and controlled. The video hit 50 million views within 24 hours. News anchors replayed it. Celebrities reposted it. Even the biker community began discussing it, not as shame, but as reflection. Meanwhile, in a small apartment across town, the biker leader sat alone on his couch, phone glowing in his hand. He had watched the video over and over, each frame like a mirror he didn't want to face. His tough guy mask had fallen away. All he could see now was how cruel they had been, how childish. But more than anything, how different Keanu's response was from anything he'd expected. He thought back to the moment Keanu said, You shouldn't need to know who someone is to treat them with respect. Those words echoed in his mind every few minutes. He couldn't sleep.
He couldn't eat.
By sunrise, he made a decision. The next afternoon, he returned to the same bar. This time he came alone. No bikes roaring, no arrogance, no sunglasses hiding shame. He walked to the counter and placed a small black envelope on the bar table. Inside it, a handwritten note and a $500 donation to a local children's hospital, the same one Keanu had quietly supported for years. The note read, To Mr. Reeves, you showed me what strength really is. I disrespected you, and yet you taught me. I've spent my life trying to look strong. But that night I saw what real strength looks like. Control, kindness, peace. Thank you for reminding me who I should be. The bartender smiled when she read it. She took a picture and sent it to a friend who posted it online. By evening, the image had gone viral too. The caption said, The biker returned. Sometimes the greatest apology is change. Keanu never commented publicly on the event. When reporters asked, he simply said, It wasn't about me. It was about how we treat each other when no one's watching. That single line became a quote shared on thousands of motivational pages. It was printed on t-shirts, used in podcasts, and even appeared on billboards in Asia and Europe. It wasn't the fight that captured hearts. It was the forgiveness. Months later, that same biker, once known for arrogance, began organizing charity rides. He started mentoring young riders, teaching them about respect, safety, and humility on the road. At one of his gatherings, he stood before a group of new bikers and said, The night I disrespected Keanu Reeves was the night I met myself. And trust me, that's not a mistake you want to make. The crowd laughed softly, then applauded. Not because they idolized him, but because they saw change. And somewhere in Los Angeles, Keanu sat quietly in a corner cafe, sipping coffee, reading a worn-out novel, a small smile on his face. He wasn't thinking about fame or the millions who had watched. He was thinking about that young biker, the one who'd said, "I'll remember that." He hoped he truly had. Outside the cafe window, two kids walked by wearing black leather jackets. One said to the other, "Hey, did you see that video about Keanu Reeves and the bikers?" The other replied, "Yeah, he's different. He didn't fight. He just walked away." "I want to be like that." Keanu heard them, smiled faintly, and looked down at his cup. He whispered softly, "If that's what they learned, then it was all worth it." The camera pans up. Sunlight breaking through the clouds. The soft hum of motorcycles in the distance, the city alive with quiet motion. A faint echo of Keanu's bike fades into the horizon. Timeless, humble, unstoppable. Narrator, voiceover. In a world obsessed with pride, one man proved that true strength isn't in how hard you hit. It's in how calm you stay when you could destroy everything. That night, the legend of John Wick wasn't about revenge. It was about respect.